Imagine drifting into a world where mighty kings ruled vast lands. Grand palaces shimmered under the sun, and empires rose and fell like the tides. Tonight, we'll journey through the entire history of the Persian Empire, from its humble beginnings to its legendary conquests, in a calming, story-like flow that will ease your mind. Long before Persia became a name known across the world, it was a land of small villages and tribes scattered across a vast plateau. These early Persians were brave, hard-working people who lived in what is now modern-day Iran. They farmed the land, tended to their animals, and created small communities where families relied on one another for survival. Life was simple, yet full of challenges. Harsh winters, dry summers, and rugged mountains made survival difficult. But the Persians adapted to their environment with great skill. Over time, these small communities began to unite under strong local leaders. One of the first great Persian dynasties was the Achaemenid dynasty, founded by Cyrus the Great around 550 BCE. Cyrus was no ordinary leader. He had a vision to unite the Persian tribes and conquer neighboring lands, not just for power, but to bring stability and peace. Under his leadership, Persia began to grow rapidly, absorbing nearby kingdoms and building one of the largest empires the world had ever seen. Cyrus was known for his fairness and respect for local traditions. Unlike many conquerors of his time, he allowed the people in the lands he conquered to keep their customs and religions. This approach helped. Persia maintained control over a massive territory stretching from the Mediterranean Sea in the west to the Indus River in the east. Cities flourished, trade routes expanded, and the Persian Empire became a center of culture, wealth, and learning. The Persians also developed an organized system of government. The empire was divided into provinces called satrapies, each ruled by a governor or satrap, who collected taxes and ensured the laws of the empire were followed. This system allowed the Persian kings to manage vast lands without losing control, making the empire efficient and strong. Roads were built to connect distant cities, and a postal system ensured messages could travel quickly across thousands of miles. Life in Persia during this time was rich with culture. Art, music, and architecture thrived as the empire grew. Palaces were decorated with intricate carvings, gardens bloomed in royal courtyards, and monumental buildings reflected the empire's strength and creativity. The people of Persia, from farmers to merchants to soldiers, contributed to the empire's success, creating a legacy that would influence civilizations for centuries. By the end of this era, Persia had transformed from a collection of small villages into a powerful empire admired and feared by the rest of the world. The foundation laid by Cyrus the Great and his successors would pave the way for future rulers, wars, and achievements that would shape the history of Persia forever. After Cyrus the Great laid the foundation of the Persian Empire, his successors continued to strengthen and expand it. One of the most remarkable rulers was Darius I, also known as Darius the Great, who came to power in 522 BCE. Darius inherited an empire that already stretched across 3 continents. But he had a vision to make Persia even stronger, more organized, and culturally rich. Under his rule, Persia entered what many historians call its golden age. Darius was a brilliant administrator and strategist. He reorganized the empire into 20 satrapies, each with its own governor, ensuring that the vast lands were effectively governed. To keep control over such a huge empire, he introduced standardized systems for taxation and trade. This meant that wealth from the farthest provinces could flow smoothly to the royal treasury, funding construction projects, armies, and cultural initiatives. One of Darius's greatest achievements was the construction of the Royal Road, a massive highway stretching over 1,500 miles across the empire. This road connected cities from Sardis in the west to Susa in the east, allowing messengers, traders, and soldiers to move quickly. Inns were built along the way, and a postal system ensured that news and orders reached the king without delay. The royal road became a symbol of Persia's unity and strength, and it allowed trade and culture to flourish like never before. Under Darius, Persia also became known for its impressive cities and architecture. The capital city of Persepolis was built as a center of government and ceremony. Its grand palaces adorned with beautiful reliefs. Statues and terraces reflected the empire's power and sophistication. Ceremonial halls were used for celebrations, official meetings, and receptions of foreign leaders, showing Persia's wealth and influence to the world. Darius also expanded the empire's borders through military campaigns. Persia reached as far as the Indus River in the east, modern-day Pakistan, and in the west, the empire reached into Thrace and Macedonia. While some of these conquests faced resistance, Darius often combined military strength with diplomacy. He allowed conquered peoples to maintain their traditions and religions, creating loyalty rather than rebellion. Trade and culture thrived under Darius's rule. The empire's vast network of roads and sea routes connected cities from Egypt to India, making Persia a hub for merchants, scholars, and artists. Gold, silver, spices, textiles, and other goods flowed across the empire, enriching its people and spreading Persian influence far and wide. Knowledge, ideas, and art from different regions merged, creating a vibrant cultural landscape that would leave a lasting impact on future civilizations. By the end of Darius's reign, the Persian Empire was stronger, wealthier, and more organized than ever before. His policies, roads, and cities not only strengthened the empire, but also laid the groundwork for future rulers to maintain and expand this magnificent realm. Darius's leadership ensured that Persia was seen not just as a land of warriors, but as a center of culture, learning, and civilization, guiding the empire toward its legendary status in history. As the Persian Empire grew under the leadership of kings like Darius I and later Xerxes I, its vast size and wealth drew attention from neighboring lands. One of the most famous conflicts in Persian history is the series of wars fought against the Greek city-states, known collectively as the Persian Wars. These wars were not just about land or power, they were about the clash of cultures, ideas, and ambitions that would shape the future of both Persia and Greece. The first major conflict began around 499 BCE, when Greek cities in Asia Minor, under Persian control, rebelled against the empire. Darius I was determined to crush this revolt and punish the Greeks who had supported it. This led to the Battle of Marathon in 490 BCE, one of the most famous battles in history. The Persian army, large and well-equipped, landed on the shores of Marathon, expecting an easy victory. However, the Greek forces, though smaller, were skilled and motivated. Using clever tactics, the Greeks won a stunning victory, surprising the world and showing that Persia, despite its size and power, could be challenged. Years later, Darius's son, Xerxes I, took the throne and vowed to continue his father's mission. Xerxes launched an enormous invasion of Greece around 480 BCE with one of the largest armies ever assembled at that time. Soldiers, horses, and supplies marched across Europe, and bridges were built over rivers to allow the army to advance. The famous Battle of Thermopylae occurred during this invasion, where a small Greek force, led by King Leonidas of Sparta, held off the massive Persian army for several days. Though the Persians eventually won this battle, the courage of the Greeks became legendary and inspired future resistance. Meanwhile, the Greek navy, though outnumbered, used strategy and knowledge of their waters to fight back. The Battle of Salamis, a naval battle in 480 BCE, was a turning point. The Greek ships lured the Persian navy into narrow straits, where the massive Persian fleet could not maneuver effectively. The Greeks achieved a decisive victory, forcing Xerxes to retreat and saving much of Greece from conquest. The Persian Wars highlighted both the strengths and weaknesses of the empire. Persia had incredible resources, vast armies, and skilled leaders, but controlling distant lands was challenging. Supply lines were long, communication was slow, and local populations often resisted Persian rule. Despite these challenges, the empire remained powerful and continued to thrive culturally and economically. These wars also left a lasting legacy. The stories of bravery, strategy, and heroism from both sides became part of history and literature. They showed the world that even the largest empire could face setbacks, and that courage and cleverness could sometimes outweigh sheer numbers. For Persia, the wars were a lesson in the limits of expansion and the importance of diplomacy alongside military might. By the end of this period, Persia remained a major power. But the Greek victories planted seeds for future conflicts and inspired generations of leaders and thinkers. The Persian Wars were not just battles. They were defining moments that tested the empire's strength, shaped its policies, and influenced world history for centuries to come. The Persian Empire was not only strong in battles and ruled by powerful kings, but it also had a rich culture, interesting religions, and a structured society. Life in Persia included art, learning, religion, and traditions that affected how people lived every day. The Persians were very good at building and creating art. They made big palaces, temples, and monuments that were both useful and beautiful. The city of Persepolis had decorated walls, showing kings, soldiers, and people from different countries bringing gifts. There were gardens with water, decorated terraces, and staircases, showing how much the Persians cared about beauty and order. Persian society had different roles for people. Farmers grew crops like wheat and barley. Merchants sold goods in markets and traded with other countries. Craftsmen made pottery, metal items, and jewelry. Soldiers protected the empire, while governors collected taxes and made sure laws were followed. Everyone had a role that helped the empire work smoothly. Religion was very important. Most people followed Zoroastrianism, taught by the prophet Zarathustra Zoroaster. They believed in one god called Ahura Mazda, who represented good, and also in the struggle between good and evil. People were expected to make good choices, and fire was very sacred in their temples. Priests, called magi, helped guide people and advise the kings. Education and learning were valued. Children learned to read, write, and do math. Scholars studied history, poetry, medicine, and astronomy.
Knowledge
Was shared across the empire, helping people improve farming, building, and trade. Festivals and celebrations were common. People celebrated the seasons, religious holidays, and royal events with music, dance, and feasts. Families and communities came together to honor traditions, strengthen bonds, and enjoy life. Even during challenging times, Persian culture continued to grow. Art, religion, education, and festivals made society stronger and more connected. These traditions and ideas influenced people far beyond Persia, leaving a legacy that lasted long after the empire ended. After the reigns of great rulers like Cyrus the Great and Darius I, the Persian Empire continued to be a powerful force under the Achaemenid dynasty. However, maintaining such a vast empire proved increasingly difficult as time passed. The later kings faced challenges from internal rebellions, ambitious generals, and rising foreign powers that slowly tested Persia's strength. One of the notable later kings was Xerxes I, the son of Darius I, who ruled from 486 to 465 BCE. Xerxes is famous for continuing the wars against Greece, including the legendary battles of Thermopylae and Salamis. While his early campaigns showed Persia's military might, the eventual Greek victories revealed vulnerabilities in the empire. Controlling distant lands became more complicated as local populations often resisted Persian rule, making governance a constant challenge. After Xerxes, several kings tried to maintain the empire's glory, but internal problems grew. Revolts in provinces became more frequent, and corruption among officials sometimes weakened administration. While the empire still had wealth, armies, and trade, the combination of political instability and military setbacks signaled the start of decline. The later Achaemenid rulers struggled to match the leadership and vision of the early kings, and their power began to waver in the face of new threats. Despite these challenges, Persian culture and administration remained influential. The satrap system continued to manage vast territories, and trade routes connected cities from Egypt to India. Art, architecture, and learning thrived in many regions, showing that even during decline, Persia's cultural legacy remained strong. Cities like Persepolis continued to be centers of ceremony, education, and government, attracting scholars, merchants, and travelers from distant lands. Eventually, the empire faced its greatest external threat, the rise of Alexander the Great of Macedonia. Alexander, a young and brilliant military leader, began his campaign against Persia in 334 BCE. The Persian armies, although large, were unable to withstand Alexander's strategic brilliance. Key battles, including the Battle of Issus and the Battle of Gaugamela, resulted in decisive defeats for Persia. King Darius III, the last Achaemenid ruler, was forced to flee and was after the fall of the Achaemenid Empire, the lands of Persia did not remain without rulers for long. Alexander the Great of Macedonia had conquered Persia, but after his death in 323 BCE, his vast empire was divided among his generals. In Persia, one of his generals, Seleucus I Nicator, established the Seleucid Empire, which controlled much of the former Achaemenid territories. Although smaller than the original Persian Empire, the Seleucids sought to maintain Persian traditions while also introducing Greek culture. Creating a unique blend known as Hellenistic Persia, the Seleucid rulers faced many challenges. They had to manage a vast territory with diverse populations, including Persians, Greeks, Jews, and other peoples. Revolts were frequent, as local rulers and communities sometimes resisted Seleucid authority. To maintain control, the Seleucids established cities, forts, and military outposts throughout their lands. They also encouraged Greek settlers to move to Persia, introducing new architecture, art, and political ideas. This blending of Greek and Persian cultures enriched the region, leading to advancements in learning, philosophy, and science. Despite these efforts, the Seleucid Empire struggled to hold on to all of its territories. Around the mid-2nd century BCE, a new power arose in eastern Persia, the Parthians. The Parthians were originally a group of nomadic tribes who had settled in the region of Parthia in northeastern Iran. Skilled horsemen and archers, they were excellent fighters who could use the rugged terrain to their advantage. Over time, they challenged the Seleucids and gradually took control of Persia, establishing the Parthian Empire around 247 BCE. The Parthians were known for their unique style of warfare, which relied heavily on cavalry and mobility. Their mounted archers could strike quickly and retreat before heavier enemy forces could respond. This made them formidable opponents for neighboring empires, including the Seleucids and later the Romans. Unlike the centralized administration of the Achaemenids, the Parthians ruled through a system of semi-independent local kings, which allowed them to manage a large territory while giving local leaders some autonomy. Under the Parthians, Persian culture experienced a revival. They respected Zoroastrian traditions and Persian customs, blending them with new influences from Hellenistic and regional cultures. Trade thrived along the Silk Road, connecting Persia to China, India, and the Mediterranean. Cities grew rich as merchants, artisans, and scholars traveled along these routes, exchanging goods, ideas, and knowledge. The Parthian Empire became a bridge between East and West, influencing art, science, and diplomacy across continents. The transition from the Seleucids to the Parthians demonstrates Persia's resilience. Even after conquest and political upheaval, Persian culture, administration, and society continued to evolve and adapt. Each successive empire built upon the foundations of the Achaemenids, preserving important traditions while embracing new ideas. This period of change shows that while empires may rise and fall, the legacy of Persia endured, leaving a lasting impact on the region and the world. After the Parthians ruled Persia for several centuries, a new dynasty emerged that would restore Persian power, pride, and culture to its highest level in ancient times. This dynasty was the Sassanid Empire, founded in 224 CE by Artaxerxes. The Sassanids saw themselves as the true heirs of the Achaemenids, and their goal was to reunite Persia, strengthen its borders, and revive the glory of the ancient empire. The Sassanids were remarkable rulers, known for their strong central government, military strength, and cultural achievements, unlike the Parthians, who allowed local rulers some independence. The Sassanids established a highly organized system with powerful kings at the center. They divided the empire into provinces, each carefully managed by governors who reported directly to the king. This structure allowed the empire to maintain stability over a vast territory stretching from the Mediterranean in the west to the Indus River in the east. Military power was a key feature of the Sassanid Empire. The Sassanids built a strong, well-equipped army that could defend Persia from enemies such as the Roman Empire and later the Byzantine Empire. Cavalry units, heavily armored soldiers, and advanced siege tactics made the Sassanids one of the most formidable forces of their time. Battles with Rome were frequent and intense, and both empires pushed each other to innovate in warfare, diplomacy, and strategy. Persian culture flourished under the Sassanids. They were great patrons of art, architecture, and learning. Cities like Ctesiphon, the empire's capital, became centers of culture and administration. Palaces, temples, and public buildings showcased impressive architectural designs, with massive arches, intricate stone carvings, and beautiful mosaics. Zoroastrianism remained the state religion, guiding moral and social life while scholars studied medicine, astronomy, literature, and philosophy. The empire's support for knowledge helped preserve many ancient texts and ideas that might have otherwise been lost. Trade and economy thrived during this time. The Sassanids controlled key trade routes connecting the east and west, including the famous Silk Road. Merchants brought silk from China, spices from India, and precious metals from Africa and the Mediterranean. This trade not only enriched Persia, but also allowed the empire to influence the cultures of neighboring regions. Cities grew, markets flourished, and people from different lands contributed to the empire's prosperity. Despite its strength, the Sassanid Empire faced constant threats. Wars with Rome, the rise of nomadic tribes, and internal disputes sometimes weakened the empire. Yet, the Sassanids adapted by strengthening their military, forming alliances, and maintaining efficient governance. Their resilience allowed Persia to remain a major power in the ancient world for over 4 centuries, until the Islamic conquests of the 7th century brought a new era to the region. The Sassanid Empire represents the last great chapter of ancient Persian glory. Its kings, warriors, scholars, and artists built a civilization that combined strength, culture, and knowledge. Even after the empire fell, the legacy of the Sassanids influenced art, government, and society in the region for centuries. leaving an enduring mark on world history. The Sassanid Empire was not just known for its power and wealth, it was also a center of deep religious and philosophical thought. Religion played a central role in daily life, politics, and culture, shaping the values and behaviors of its people. The state religion during this time was Zoroastrianism, which had existed in Persia for centuries, but reached new heights under the Sassanids. Zoroastrianism was based on the teachings of the prophets Zarathustra, Zoroaster. The core belief of this religion was the struggle between good, represented by Ahura Mazda, and evil, represented by Angra Mainyu. Humans were believed to have the power to choose between these forces through their thoughts, words, and actions. The Sassanids promoted this religion not only as a guide for personal life, but also as a framework for government and society. Kings were seen as guardians of righteousness, responsible for maintaining justice and order according to divine law. Fire played an especially sacred role in Zoroastrianism. Temples, called fire temples, housed a continuously burning flame, which symbolized purity, wisdom, and the presence of Ahura Mazda. People visited these temples for prayer, guidance, and religious ceremonies. Zoroastrian priests, known as magi, held great influence in both spiritual and political matters. They advised kings, performed rituals, and educated the public about religious teachings. Philosophy and learning also thrived under the Sassanids. Scholars explored topics such as medicine, astronomy, mathematics, and ethics. They translated texts from Greek, Indian, and Babylonian sources into Middle Persian, preserving knowledge that might have been lost after the fall of earlier empires. The Sassanids established libraries and centers of learning, attracting intellectuals from across the empire. This intellectual environment contributed to advancements in science and culture that influenced neighboring civilizations. Ethics and morality were deeply intertwined with religion in Sassanid Persia. People were encouraged to live honest, honorable lives, care for their families and communities, and respect the natural world. The concept of truth, asha, was central, guiding not only personal behavior, but also law, governance, and social responsibilities. Kings and officials were expected to act according to these principles, creating a society where religion and justice were closely connected. The Sassanid focus on religion and philosophy left a lasting impact even after the empire fell. Zoroastrian ideas influenced later Islamic thinkers and cultures in Persia and beyond. The preservation of knowledge, emphasis on ethics, and the blending of religious and philosophical thought helped Persia remain a cultural and intellectual beacon for centuries. Through their devotion to faith, learning, and ethical living, the Sassanids created a society that was not only powerful, but also morally and intellectually rich. Their religious and philosophical achievements contributed to the enduring legacy of the Persian Empire, inspiring future generations and leaving a mark on the world that survives to this day. The Persian Empire was not only known for its kings and armies, but also for its rich contributions to art, architecture, and literature. From the earliest Achaemenids to the later Sassanids, Persians valued creativity, beauty, and knowledge, which were reflected in their buildings, paintings, sculptures, and stories. These cultural achievements helped Persia leave a lasting impression on the world. Persian architecture was among the most impressive of the ancient world. Palaces, temples, and public buildings were designed to be both grand and functional. The capital city of Persepolis, built under Darius I and his successors, showcased massive columns, carved reliefs, and beautiful staircases that told stories of kings, soldiers, and people from all corners of the empire. The designs often combined practical purposes with artistic beauty, creating structures that were both durable and visually stunning. Later, under the Sassanids, cities like Ctesiphon featured monumental arches, intricate stone carvings, and sprawling palaces that demonstrated engineering skill and artistic vision. Persian art extended beyond buildings. Reliefs, sculptures, and paintings were used to tell stories of kings, battles, and religious beliefs. Scenes of royal ceremonies, hunting expeditions, and mythological events decorated walls and monuments, giving viewers a glimpse into Persian life and culture. Artists paid attention to detail, showing clothing, weapons, and animals with accuracy, while also emphasizing movement and emotion in their work. This attention to detail reflected the Persian desire to celebrate life, power, and beauty. Literature flourished in the Persian Empire as well. Poets, historians, and scholars wrote stories, epic poems, and chronicles that preserved history and moral lessons. Zoroastrian texts, such as the Avesta, were carefully copied and studied, guiding spiritual and moral life. Later, under the Sassanids, scholars translated works from Greek, Indian, and Babylonian sources, enriching Persian literature and knowledge. These written works helped connect generations, passing down ideas, values, and stories across centuries. Persian culture also celebrated music, dance, and festivals. Music played an important role in both religious ceremonies and royal events. Dances and performances were performed during celebrations, showing joy, skill, and devotion. Festivals often marked seasonal changes, religious holidays, or victories, bringing communities together and strengthening social bonds. Trade and interaction with other cultures enriched Persian art and literature. As merchants and travelers moved along the Silk Road, they brought ideas, materials, and techniques from distant lands. Persian artists adapted and combined these influences with their own traditions, creating works that were unique and highly admired. This exchange helped Persia remain a center of cultural innovation and learning for centuries, through its art, architecture, and literature. The Persian Empire expressed the creativity, values, and identity of its people. These achievements were not only a display of wealth and power, but also a way to inspire, educate, and connect communities across a vast empire. Even after the fall of the empire, Persian culture continued to influence the world, leaving a legacy of beauty, wisdom, and innovation that still captivates us today. The Persian Empire was not only powerful because of its armies and kings, but also because of its thriving trade and strong economy. The empire's vast lands connected diverse regions, from the deserts of the Middle East to the mountains of Central Asia, allowing goods, ideas, and culture to flow freely. Trade became one of the empire's greatest strengths, helping Persia grow wealthy and influential. One of the most important achievements of the Persian Empire was its development of an extensive network of roads. The most famous of these was the Royal Road, built during the reign of Darius I, stretching over 1,500 miles. This road connected cities across the empire, making travel faster and safer. Merchants, soldiers, and messengers could move goods and information efficiently, while travelers could find inns and rest stations along the way. This infrastructure encouraged trade and helped unify the empire, both economically and politically. Persia's economy was diverse and strong. Farmers produced crops such as wheat, barley, and fruits, providing food for cities and armies. Livestock, including sheep, goats, and horses, supplied meat, wool, and transportation. Skilled artisans created textiles, pottery, metalwork, and jewelry, which were highly valued in local and foreign markets. Mining operations provided precious metals like gold, silver, and copper, which were used for coins, trade, and decoration. This variety of economic activities helped Persia remain wealthy and stable for centuries. Trade was not limited to Persia itself. The empire played a central role in long-distance trade along the Silk Road, connecting China, India, the Middle East, and the Mediterranean. Silk, spices, precious stones, and exotic goods traveled along these routes, bringing wealth and new ideas to Persian cities. Merchants from distant lands arrived in Persia, exchanging goods, techniques, and knowledge. This cultural and economic exchange enriched Persian society and strengthened its position as a global hub of commerce. Persian coins, introduced during Darius I's reign, helped standardize trade and make it more reliable. The coins were made of gold and silver, stamped with the king's image or symbols of power. Using coins allowed merchants to trade easily across regions without relying on barter, improving the efficiency of the economy and encouraging business growth. Markets, known as bazaars, were centers of commerce and social life. People not only bought and sold goods, but also exchanged news, ideas, and cultural practices. The empire's cities were full of life, with merchants, artisans, farmers, and travelers contributing to a vibrant economic and social network. These activities created wealth, supported urban growth, and strengthened the empire's overall stability. The Persian Empire's focus on trade, roads, and economic organization ensured that it remained a major power for centuries. Its strategic location, well-planned infrastructure, and strong market systems allowed it to connect distant regions, making it a hub of wealth, culture, and innovation. Even after the fall of the Achaemenid and later Sassanid empires, the legacy of Persian trade and economic ingenuity continued to influence the world for generations, proving that commerce can be as powerful as armies in shaping history. The strength of the Persian Empire was not only in its size or wealth, but also in its powerful military. From the Achaemenid kings to the Sassanids, Persian armies were carefully organized, well-trained, and highly strategic. Their success in battles and campaigns helped Persia expand and defend its vast territories for centuries. The Persian army was composed of soldiers from all over the empire. This diversity gave Persia a variety of skills and specialties. Infantry, cavalry, archers, and charioteers were all important parts of the army. The famous Immortals were an elite group of 10,000 soldiers who served as the king's personal guard. They were called Immortals because whenever one soldier was killed or injured, he was immediately replaced, keeping the number constant. These soldiers were highly trained, disciplined, and equipped with the best weapons, making them a formidable force in battle. Persian military strategies were advanced for their time. Commanders carefully planned campaigns, considering geography, weather, and enemy strength. They built forts, bridges, and roads to support troop movements, allowing their armies to travel long distances quickly. Logistics, such as food supplies and equipment, were carefully organized to ensure that soldiers could fight effectively even in faraway lands. Cavalry units were a key part of the Persian military. Skilled horsemen used speed and mobility to outmaneuver enemies, launch surprise attacks, and protect supply lines. The Parthians, in particular, became famous for their mounted archers, who could shoot arrows accurately while riding at full speed. This technique, known as the Parthian shot, allowed them to strike enemies and retreat before counterattacks, making them a highly effective fighting force. Naval power was also important for Persia. The empire maintained fleets that could control rivers and seas, support land campaigns, and protect trade routes. Battles at sea, such as those during the Persian Wars with Greece, showed both the strengths and limits of Persian naval strategies. While Persia could assemble large fleets, maneuvering them effectively against skilled Greek navies proved challenging. Training and discipline were essential in the Persian army. Soldiers underwent rigorous exercises, learned to follow commands precisely, and practiced with weapons regularly. They also learned about tactics, formations, and coordination, which allowed large armies to operate smoothly in complex battles. Kings and generals often led from the front, inspiring troops and making strategic decisions that could change the course of a campaign. Persian military strategies evolved over time, adapting to new challenges and enemies. While early Achaemenid armies relied heavily on large infantry formations, later armies incorporated more cavalry, archery, and siege techniques. The Sassanids, for example, developed advanced siege engines and heavy cavalry to counter Roman forces. This adaptability allowed Persia to remain a major military power for centuries. The Persian military was more than just a fighting force. It was a symbol of unity, discipline, and strength. It protected the empire, supported expansion, and inspired awe among allies and enemies alike. Through careful organization, advanced tactics, and skilled soldiers, Persia built one of the most effective military systems of the ancient world, leaving a lasting legacy that influenced later civilizations. The Persian Empire was not only a land of powerful kings and mighty armies, it was also a hub of knowledge, learning, and scientific advancement. Scholars, astronomers, and doctors in Persia made important discoveries that influenced not only their own time, but also the development of science in later civilizations. Astronomy was a highly respected field in Persia. Scholars observed the stars, planets, and celestial movements, developing calendars that helped with farming, religious ceremonies, and trade. They studied the cycles of the sun and moon to determine seasons and important dates for planting crops. Observatories and star charts allowed Persian astronomers to record detailed knowledge of the night sky. Their observations helped shape mathematics, astrology, and navigation, guiding both travelers and merchants across the empire. Medicine was another area where Persia excelled. Persian doctors studied anatomy, herbal remedies, and treatments for common illnesses. They combined knowledge from Greek, Indian, and Babylonian sources with their own experiences to create effective methods of healing. Hospitals and medical centers were established in major cities where patients could receive care from trained physicians. Hygiene, nutrition, and careful observation of symptoms were emphasized, showing a thoughtful and systematic approach to medicine that influenced later medical practices in the Islamic world. Mathematics and engineering were also highly developed. Persian scholars contributed to geometry, algebra, and arithmetic, which were important for building roads, palaces, and irrigation systems. They designed aqueducts, canals, and reservoirs to manage water for cities and farmland. Engineering projects not only supported agriculture and trade, but also demonstrated the empire's organizational skills and innovative thinking. Persian scholars often traveled across the empire, exchanging ideas with other civilizations. This cultural and scientific exchange helped Persia adopt new techniques while also sharing its own knowledge with the wider world. Libraries and centers of learning preserved texts from previous civilizations, translating works into Middle Persian and other languages. These efforts ensured that important scientific and philosophical ideas were not lost and could be built upon by future generations. Astronomy, medicine, and mathematics were closely linked to daily life and governance. Accurate calendars helped farmers plant crops at the right time, while medical knowledge kept soldiers and citizens healthy. Engineering projects allowed cities to flourish, supporting growing populations and trade. Science was practical as well as intellectual, serving both the people and the empire as a whole. The Persian focus on knowledge and learning left a lasting legacy. Many discoveries, methods, and ideas from Persian scholars influenced later Islamic scientists and European thinkers during the Middle Ages. Their careful observations, experiments, and writings became part of the foundation of modern science. In summary, the Persian Empire was more than its kings, armies, or architecture. It was a civilization that valued knowledge, observation, and innovation. Astronomy, medicine, mathematics, and engineering were all advanced to remarkable levels, showing that the pursuit of learning was a central part of Persian culture. These achievements helped the empire thrive and ensured that Persian contributions to science and medicine would be remembered for centuries. The Persian Empire was not only a political and military power, but also a cultural and religious beacon for the ancient world. Its influence extended far beyond its borders, shaping the beliefs, practices, and daily life of neighboring civilizations. Through trade, conquest, and diplomacy, Persian culture and religion left an enduring legacy that lasted for centuries. Religion was at the heart of Persian society. Zoroastrianism, the state religion during the Achaemenid and Sassanid periods, emphasized truth, morality, and the eternal struggle between good and evil. These ideas influenced not only Persian citizens, but also people in surrounding regions. Concepts such as justice, ethical behavior, and moral responsibility were spread through Persian governance, literature, and interactions with neighboring lands. Kings were seen as defenders of truth and order, setting examples that other rulers admired and sometimes emulated. Persian art and architecture also inspired neighboring civilizations. Its palaces, temples, and public buildings showcased elaborate carvings, detailed reliefs, and grand columns. Cities like Persepolis and Ctesiphon became symbols of Persia's sophistication, admired by visitors from Greece, India, and beyond. Architectural styles such as monumental arches, decorative columns, and terraced gardens influenced the designs of buildings in other regions, including the Roman Empire and later Islamic architecture. These artistic achievements highlighted Persia's ability to combine practicality with beauty, leaving a lasting impression on world architecture. Trade and cultural exchange played a crucial role in spreading Persian influence. The Silk Road connected Persia to China, India, the Mediterranean, and Africa, allowing not only goods but also ideas and customs to travel freely. Merchants, travelers, and scholars carried Persian knowledge of science, medicine, mathematics, and literature to distant lands. At the same time, Persia absorbed new ideas from other cultures, blending them with its own traditions to create a rich and dynamic civilization. Persian language and literature also left a mark. Middle Persian, or Pahlavi, became the administrative and literary language of the empire. Historical records, religious texts, poetry, and philosophical writings were preserved and copied, influencing later Persian and regional literature. Epic stories such as the tales of kings, heroes, and legendary battles inspired storytellers in other cultures, helping spread Persian values, morals, and history. Military strategies and governance systems also influenced neighboring regions. Persian techniques of organizing large armies, maintaining communication across vast territories, and governing diverse populations were studied by other empires. Ideas such as the satrap system, with provincial governors overseeing regions under a central authority, were admired and adapted by later empires seeking to manage large lands efficiently. Even after the fall of the Persian Empire, its cultural and religious influence persisted. Successor empires, such as the Seleucids, Parthians, and later Islamic dynasties, preserved and adapted Persian ideas, ensuring their survival. Zoroastrian beliefs, artistic styles, administrative systems, and literature continued to inspire societies long after Persia's political power had waned. In summary, the Persian Empire shaped the world not only through conquest, but also through culture, religion, and ideas. Its influence reached far beyond its borders, touching the lives of people in neighboring lands and leaving a legacy of knowledge, art, ethics, and governance. Persia demonstrated that the power of culture and the Persian Empire was not only one of the largest empires in history, but also one of the most economically advanced civilizations of its time. Its vast territories, organized administration, and strategic trade routes allowed Persia to build a strong and flourishing economy that influenced global commerce for centuries. Agriculture formed the backbone of the Persian economy. Farmers cultivated fertile lands along rivers and plains, growing wheat, barley, fruits, and vegetables. Irrigation systems, canals, and reservoirs ensured that crops thrived even in dry regions. Livestock, including sheep, goats, and horses, provided meat, wool, and transportation, supporting both local communities and the empire's military needs. The productivity of the land allowed Persia to sustain its population, feed its armies, and supply goods for trade. Trade was central to Persia's prosperity. Empire controlled key routes that connected the east and west, including the famous Silk Road. Merchants transported silk from China, spices from India, precious metals from Africa, and luxury goods from the Mediterranean. Persian cities like Persepolis, Susa, Ctesiphon became bustling centers of commerce where goods, ideas, and culture were exchanged. This trade network not only enriched Persia, but also helped connect civilizations across continents, making it a hub of global commerce. Persian coins, introduced during the reign of Darius I, revolutionized trade by providing a reliable and standardized currency. Gold and silver coins, stamped with the king's image, allowed merchants to conduct business easily across regions. The use of coins replaced barter systems, increasing trade efficiency and promoting economic growth. Markets, or bazaars, became centers of social life, where people not only bought and sold goods, but also shared news, ideas, and cultural practices. Persia's influence extended beyond its borders. Neighboring empires and civilizations adopted Persian administrative and economic practices. Roads, postal systems, and trade regulations established by the Persians were studied and implemented by later empires to manage long-distance commerce effectively. Persia's approach to taxation, provincial management, and infrastructure planning created a model for efficient economic governance that influenced regions far beyond the empire. Crafts and industry were also important to the Persian economy. Artisans produced textiles, pottery, metalwork, and jewelry, which were highly valued locally and internationally. Workshops in major cities employed skilled workers, contributing to both economic growth and cultural development. These crafts reflected the empire's artistic achievements, while supporting trade and wealth creation. Even in times of conflict, Persia's economy remained resilient. The empire's vast resources, strategic trade routes, and strong administration allowed it to recover from wars and maintain prosperity. By integrating agriculture, trade, crafts, and taxation, Persia built an economy that was both diverse and sustainable. In conclusion, the Persian Empire's economy was a cornerstone of its power. Through effective agriculture, thriving trade, advanced currency systems, and skilled artisans, Persia not only enriched its own people, but also influenced global commerce. Its economic strategies and trade networks left a lasting legacy, showing that wealth, organization, and cultural exchange can shape civilizations for centuries. The Persian Empire was not only powerful in politics, military, and economy, but it also valued knowledge, education, and the transfer of wisdom. Persian scholars, teachers, and thinkers played an essential role in preserving ancient knowledge, developing new ideas, and sharing learning across the empire and beyond. Education in Persia was considered important for all classes of society, from the children of farmers and merchants to those of nobles and royal families. Schools taught reading, writing, arithmetic, and history, helping students develop skills needed for everyday life, trade, and government. Children also learned about Persian culture, moral values, and religion, particularly Zoroastrian principles such as truth, justice, and responsibility. This education created well-rounded citizens who contributed to the strength and stability of the empire. Science was highly respected in Persian society. Astronomers studied the stars, planets, and solar cycles, creating accurate calendars that guided agriculture, religious festivals, and navigation. Mathematics was used in construction, trade, and astronomy, showing the practical importance of knowledge in everyday life. Persian scholars combined observations from local traditions with knowledge from Greek, Indian, and Babylonian sources, creating a rich and advanced scientific understanding. Medicine was another area where Persia excelled. Doctors studied anatomy, diseases, and remedies using herbs and natural treatments. Hospitals in major cities, such as Ctesiphon, provided care for the sick and trained young physicians. Medical knowledge was carefully documented and shared, ensuring that future generations could build upon earlier discoveries. Hygiene, nutrition, and proper care were emphasized, reflecting Persia's advanced understanding of health and well-being. Knowledge transfer was a key feature of Persian education and science. Scholars traveled throughout the empire, exchanging ideas with people from different regions. Texts were translated into Middle Persian, and other languages, preserving ancient knowledge and making it accessible across the empire. Libraries and learning centers collected manuscripts on astronomy, medicine, literature, and philosophy, acting as repositories of human wisdom. This practice ensured that important ideas survived even after political changes or invasions. The Persian focus on education and science had lasting effects beyond the empire. Many discoveries, ideas, and methods were adopted by neighboring civilizations, influencing the development of science, medicine, and mathematics in the Middle East and Europe. Persian scholars. Dedication to knowledge helped create a bridge between ancient civilizations and later advancements during the Islamic Golden Age. By promoting education, scientific research, and knowledge sharing, the Persian Empire ensured that its cultural and intellectual achievements endured. Learning was valued not just for personal growth, but also for the benefit of the empire as a whole. This emphasis on knowledge strengthened Persian society, guided leaders, and inspired generations of scholars, leaving a legacy that continues to influence the world today. The Persian Empire was a land of beauty, creativity, and celebration. Beyond its powerful kings and vast armies, Persia thrived as a center of art, music, and cultural festivals. These artistic achievements not only reflected the empire, its wealth and sophistication, but also strengthened social bonds and preserved cultural traditions for generations. Art in Persia was rich and diverse. From the Achaemenids to the Sassanids, Persian artists created sculptures, reliefs, paintings, and decorative objects. Walls of palaces and temples were adorned with intricate carvings depicting kings, soldiers, animals, and religious ceremonies. Reliefs at Persepolis, for example, showed people from different nations bringing gifts to the king, highlighting the empire's diversity and grandeur. Persian art combined realism with symbolic meaning, telling stories of history, power, and morality through visual expression. Music was an essential part of Persian life. Musicians played for religious ceremonies, royal events, and public celebrations. Various instruments such as drums, lutes, flutes, and stringed instruments created rich and melodic sounds that filled palaces and temples. Music accompanied poetry, dance, and storytelling, making events memorable and emotionally powerful. Persian music was not only entertainment, but also a way to connect communities and celebrate important occasions. Dance and performance were integral to Persian festivals. People performed dances during seasonal celebrations, religious rituals, and royal ceremonies. These performances often told stories of heroes, gods, and historical events. Festivals provided opportunities for communities to come together, strengthen social ties, and honor traditions. They also allowed the expression of creativity and skill, showcasing the talents of dancers, musicians, and actors. Cultural festivals were common throughout the Persian Empire. They celebrated the changing seasons, religious holidays, and significant events in the empire's history. Nowruz, the Persian New Year, is one of the most famous festivals. It marked the beginning of spring, symbolizing renewal and new beginnings. Families gathered, prepared special meals, and participated in music, dance, and rituals. Other festivals celebrated victories, religious ceremonies, or royal achievements, providing citizens with opportunities for joy, reflection, and community bonding. Trade and travel helped spread Persian art and culture to neighboring lands. Merchants, travelers, and scholars carried artistic styles, musical traditions, and festival practices along the Silk Road. In turn, Persia absorbed influences from India, Greece, and Mesopotamia, blending these ideas with its own traditions to create a rich and unique culture. This exchange strengthened Persia's position as a cultural hub and contributed to the empire's enduring legacy. Through art, music, and festivals, the Persian Empire expressed its values, history, and creativity. These cultural practices were not just entertainment, they reinforced identity, unity, and pride among the people. The beauty and richness of Persian artistic achievements continue to inspire admiration today, showing how the empire celebrated life, tradition, and human creativity across centuries. The Persian Empire was not only known for its mighty armies and grand architecture, but also for its skillful diplomacy. Persia understood that ruling such a vast empire required more than force. It required careful negotiation, alliances, and influence. This diplomatic approach helped Persia maintain control over distant lands and interact successfully with neighboring empires. One of Persia's greatest diplomatic strengths was its ability to respect local customs and traditions. Unlike many conquerors who forced their culture on others, Persian kings often allowed conquered peoples to maintain their religion, language, and governance. This approach helped create loyalty among diverse populations and reduced the risk of rebellion. Leaders, priests, and local officials often worked with Persian governors to manage provinces effectively, creating a sense of cooperation rather than domination. Persian diplomacy also relied on marriage alliances, treaties, and gift exchanges. Kings would marry members of other royal families to secure alliances, while ambassadors carried gifts and messages to foreign courts. These gestures showed respect and encouraged friendly relations. Treaties were used to settle disputes, define borders, and establish trade agreements. By combining diplomacy with strategic power, Persia managed to influence the policies and decisions of neighboring empires without always resorting to war. Trade played a role in diplomacy as well. Persia's vast network of roads and trade routes allowed merchants to travel freely, connecting the empire to Greece, India, Egypt, and Mesopotamia. These connections were not only economic, but also diplomatic. Trade fostered communication, cultural exchange, and peaceful relations, as merchants and officials often served as intermediaries between nations. Persia's ability to control and facilitate commerce gave it leverage over surrounding empires and strengthened its influence in regional politics. Persia's influence on neighboring empires was also evident in military and administrative practices. Other states observed Persia's organization of large armies, use of provincial governors, and efficient communication systems. Some empires adapted these methods to strengthen their own rule. Persian ideas about governance, law, and taxation spread through these interactions, leaving a lasting imprint on the political culture of the ancient world. Persian kings also engaged in diplomacy through religious and cultural influence. Zoroastrian principles of truth, justice, and morality guided both internal governance and external relations. This focus on ethics made Persia's rulers respected and admired even by distant lands. Festivals, art, literature, and architecture showcased the empire's sophistication, serving as soft power that impressed other nations and encouraged alliances. The empire's skillful diplomacy allowed it to manage a vast territory with diverse populations, maintain long-lasting trade and cultural connections, and exert influence over neighboring empires. Even when faced with powerful opponents, Persia often combined military strength with negotiation, demonstrating that diplomacy could be as effective as war in maintaining power. Through diplomacy, Persia not only secured its borders, but also spread its culture, religion, and political ideas across the ancient world. Its legacy in international relations shows that wise negotiation, respect for diversity, and strategic influence can strengthen empires and shape the course of history. The Persian Empire was famous not only for its kings, armies, and culture, but also for its incredible achievements in architecture and engineering. Persian architects and engineers created structures that were both beautiful and functional, leaving a legacy that continues to inspire the world today. One of the most famous examples of Persian architecture is Persepolis, the ceremonial capital built during the Achaemenid period. The city featured grand palaces, massive columns, wide terraces, and intricately carved reliefs. Artists depicted scenes of kings receiving tribute, soldiers marching, and people from different nations bringing gifts. These carvings not only showed artistic skill, but also celebrated the empire's power and diversity. The layout of Persepolis demonstrated careful planning with areas for government, ceremonies, and public gatherings. Another remarkable achievement was the Royal Road, built under Darius I. This extensive road network stretched over 1,500 miles, connecting cities across the empire. It allowed for faster travel, communication, and trade. Inns and stations were built along the road, providing rest and supplies for travelers and couriers. This engineering marvel not only supported commerce, but also strengthened administrative control, enabling messages from the king to reach distant provinces quickly. Persian engineers were also skilled in water management. They constructed qanats, underground canals that brought water from mountains to cities and farmland. These systems allowed communities to thrive even in dry regions, supporting agriculture, trade, and daily life. Reservoirs, aqueducts, and dams were built to control water flow, prevent flooding, and irrigate fields, showing advanced knowledge of hydraulics and environmental planning. Under the Sassanid Empire, architecture continued to reach new heights. The capital Ctesiphon featured the famous Tek Khosra, a massive arched hall that remains one of the largest single-span brick arches in the world. Palaces, temples, public buildings were designed to impress visitors and demonstrate the empire's wealth and engineering skill. Persian architects combined form and function, creating spaces that were both practical for governance and visually stunning. Persian engineering extended to bridges, fortresses, and urban planning. Bridges over rivers connected cities and facilitated trade, while fortresses protected borders and controlled strategic routes. Cities were carefully planned with streets, markets, and public squares, reflecting both social needs and artistic design. This careful attention to structure, materials, and aesthetics demonstrated Persia's ability to blend utility with beauty. Artistic decoration was an essential part of Persian architecture. Reliefs, carvings, mosaics, and paintings adorned walls, columns, and ceilings, often depicting historical events, religious themes, or daily life. Gardens and courtyards, with flowing water and symmetrical layouts, added to the aesthetic appeal, creating a sense of harmony and grandeur. The architectural and engineering achievements of Persia were more than just impressive constructions. They were symbols of innovation, organization, and cultural identity. Through roads, water systems, palaces, and public spaces, Persia showed the world its ability to combine art, science, and practical knowledge, leaving a legacy that influenced civilizations for centuries.
The Persian Empire, with its vast territories, powerful rulers, and rich culture, left an extraordinary legacy that continued to influence the world long after its decline. From politics and administration to art, architecture, science, and religion. The contributions of Persia shaped later civilizations and left a lasting mark on history. One of Persia's most important legacies was its system of governance. The Achaemenid kings developed an efficient administrative structure, dividing the empire into satrapies provinces overseen by governors called satraps. This system allowed the empire to manage vast lands, collect taxes, and maintain law and order effectively. Many later empires, including the Seleucids, Parthians, and even Islamic dynasties, adopted and adapted this administrative model to govern large and diverse territories. Persia's approach to bureaucracy, justice, and local autonomy demonstrated that organization and fairness could strengthen empires for centuries. Persian culture and religion also influenced neighboring civilizations. Zoroastrianism, with its emphasis on truth, morality, and the struggle between good and evil, inspired religious and ethical thought beyond Persia's borders. Elements of Persian religious philosophy were absorbed into Jewish, Christian, and Islamic traditions, shaping moral teachings, eschatology, and rituals. Persian festivals, art, and architecture inspired cultural expressions across regions, showing that Persia's influence extended beyond politics into daily life and spiritual practice. Trade and commerce were another area where Persia left a lasting mark. The empire's extensive road networks, including the famous Royal Road and its role in the Silk Road, connected East and West. Merchants, scholars, and travelers exchanged goods, ideas, and innovations, spreading Persian technology, craftsmanship, and cultural practices. This economic and cultural connectivity influenced later trade systems and helped shape the global economy in ancient and medieval times. Persian art, architecture, and literature also had a profound impact. Monumental buildings, palaces, and reliefs influenced Roman, Byzantine, and later Islamic architecture. Persian gardens, decorative motifs, and urban planning inspired design traditions for centuries. Literature, poetry, and historical chronicles preserved Persian values, stories, and knowledge, inspiring later writers and thinkers across the Middle East and Central Asia. Even today, Persian poetry and art are admired.
The Persian Empire, which once stretched from the Mediterranean to the Indus River, has left an enduring spirit that continues to inspire the world. Beyond its powerful kings, grand armies, and monumental cities, Persia's greatest legacy lies in the values, systems, and culture that shaped civilizations for centuries. Even today, there are lessons to learn from this remarkable empire. One of the most important lessons is the value of unity and diversity. Persia was home to many peoples, languages, and religions. Instead of forcing a single way of life, Persian rulers respected local customs and allowed people to maintain their traditions. This approach created loyalty and stability, showing that understanding and respecting differences can strengthen a nation. Modern societies can take inspiration from this idea, recognizing that cooperation among diverse communities leads to peace and progress. The Persian Empire also teaches the importance of effective governance and organization. The satrap system, standardized laws, tax collection, and communication networks allowed the empire to manage vast lands efficiently. Roads, postal systems, and trade routes connected distant regions, demonstrating that strong infrastructure and planning are essential for a thriving civilization. Today, governments and organizations can learn from Persia's emphasis on careful administration, long-term planning, and investment in systems that serve people efficiently. Persia's cultural achievements remind us of the power of creativity and knowledge. Art, architecture, literature, music, and festivals flourished under Persian kings, enriching the lives of citizens and inspiring future generations. Science, astronomy, medicine, and engineering advanced through careful observation, study, and knowledge sharing. This combination of creativity, learning, and practical application strengthened the empire. Modern societies benefit when education, arts, and science are valued, showing that knowledge and culture are as important as military or economic strength. Ethics and morality were central to Persian life, particularly through Zoroastrian teachings. Concepts like truth, justice, and responsibility guided personal behavior and governance. Kings were expected to rule fairly, and citizens were encouraged to act with honesty and care. This focus on ethics ensured social stability and inspired respect for authority. Today, Persia's emphasis on moral leadership reminds us that integrity and ethical principles are key to lasting success in government, business, and daily life. Finally, the Persian Empire demonstrates the importance of adaptability and resilience. Over centuries, Persia faced invasions, rebellions, and political challenges. Yet it evolved, preserved its culture, and influenced future empires. Even when conquerors like Alexander the Great overtook Persia, its knowledge, art, and traditions survived and spread across the world. This lesson shows that resilience, flexibility, and the ability to learn from challenges are crucial for individuals and nations alike. In conclusion, the spirit of the Persian Empire lives on through its contributions to governance, culture, science, ethics, and diplomacy. It was more than a powerful empire. It was a civilization that valued knowledge, respect, and human creativity. By studying Persia's history, we gain insights into building strong, just, and culturally rich societies. The Persian Empire teaches that true greatness lies not only in conquest and wealth, but in wisdom, ethics, and the enduring impact one leaves on the world.